All right, so we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Madison Brydges, and I'm a researcher here at the National Institute on Aging, and I'm your host for today's webinar on Challenging Dementia Through Dance, a screening and discussion of the documentary film Dancer Not Dementia. I just want to start by noting that all microphones for the audience are muted. Please use the chat box for any technical questions, and any questions for our speakers can be put into the Q&A. So we will begin today's webinar with a land acknowledgement. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty into the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this important discussion on challenging dementia stigma. Before we continue, I want to note that the Zoom closed captions feature is available for members of the audience. If you'd like to turn this on, in your meeting controls toolbar, click the Show Captions icon to turn captions on for your screen only, and feel free to ask any questions about this in the chat box. Okay, now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. We are joined by Dr. Pia Kontos, who's a senior scientist at KITE Research Institute, University Health Network, and a professor in the Dalhousie School of Public Health at the University of Toronto. Pia is a critical scholar committed to transforming dementia care so that it is more relational and socially just. She draws on the arts to enrich the lives of people living with dementia and also creates research-based drama and film to challenge stigma-related inequities associated with dementia. We are also joined by Dr. Rachel Barr. She is a director of research and health at Canada's National Ballet School, where she leads the school's Research Institute and Artistic Health Department, overseeing dancers' well-being and performance optimization. Much of Rachel's research focuses on dance in older adulthood, and she has published several articles, book chapters, and co-edited a book specifically exploring the benefits of dance for older people living with Parkinson's disease and dementia. Pia and Rachel will start by introducing the film, and then we will all watch the film together. After the film, Pia and Rachel are going to be guiding us through some of the research about the film's impact on changing attitudes and challenging stigma. And we'll end the session with an audience Q&A. So again, please feel free to put any questions into the Q&A. And with that, I'll turn things over to Pia and Rachel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Madison. Thanks for those kind introductions. Hi, everyone. Rachel and I wish to thank the NIA for the invitation for us to participate in this webinar series. And by way of context, our work together is motivated by a very deep concern about stigma associated with dementia, how it promotes social exclusion, deprives people living with dementia of their dignity, and limits their participation in social life. We're committed to critiquing the stigma and to fostering an alternative and more humanizing vision of care that promotes inclusion, relationality, creativity, and the possibility of growth for everyone living with and who are impacted by dementia. We believe that the arts are vital to the realization of this vision of care. And so for our presentation today, and as but one example of the arts, we'll be focusing on a documentary film about dance and dementia. So by way of a roadmap for our presentation, we're going to begin with a brief discussion about the stigma associated with dementia, participatory art, and social justice art in order to provide important context for our work. We'll then watch the documentary film together, and following that, we'll share with you some qualitative research that our team has conducted on the impact that the film is having. So dementia is considered to be the most frightening condition facing the aging population, a much feared stigmatizing label that carries with it a sentence of social death. This collective representation is part of a larger stigmatizing tragedy narrative that presumes that people living with dementia are unable to grow and develop and pursue meaningful activities and relationships. To grasp the harm imposed by these assumptions, one only has to consider the conditions of life and care in so many residential long-term care settings. These settings are dominated by the biomedicalization and the pharmaceuticalization of neuropsychiatric symptoms, despite serious adverse drug reactions, increased mortality, and impaired quality of life. In these settings, care practices are often reduced to basic physical tasks such as eating, toileting, and feeding, and with few exceptions, there are no enriching activities. Participatory arts have enormous potential to reduce stigma associated with dementia. Sorry, if you could turn to the next slide, please. Thank you. To reduce stigma associated with dementia by promoting, preserving, and sustaining human flourishing. The arts are also advocated as a way to innovate education about stigma, given that they offer a form of engagement that draws on emotive, affective experiences, senses and bodies, and imagination, as well as intellect as a way of engaging with the world. The use of the arts to challenge entrenched and oppressive attitudes, perceptions, institutions, and social relations, and to imagine and effect more equitable solutions is referred to as social justice art. So our focus today is an initiative that brings together both participatory art and social justice art. With an interest in drawing on the interactive, educational, and emancipatory potential of the arts, we created a short documentary film titled Dancer Not Dementia. It was based on research our team has done about the impact of an innovative community-oriented dance program called Sharing Dance Older Adults that was co-developed by Baycrest and Canada's National Ballet School. That makes the aesthetic art of dance accessible to older adults with a range of physical and cognitive abilities, including people living with dementia, by prioritizing creative self-expression and social engagement. So we're going to watch the film together now. It's just 20 minutes, and then we'll share with you some research that we've done exploring the impact that the film is having on stigma and relational caring. So hope you enjoy the film.
Dancing? Yeah.
Dance is a way of expressing something, of telling somebody something about yourself. And that's true for a young ballet dancer who's trying to embody their technique with a sense of spirit and energy, connect to a huge audience. Or if you're just reaching across from chair to chair and trying to connect as humans in your storytelling, it's all the same.
Dancing, like music, is a universal language. You don't have to speak the language, but the beats just gets to your soul.
I love dancing. It's a way to free myself. I just get into the mood and I just kind of lose myself in the music. I just love it.
Dancing?
Yeah.
Me? Okay, give it a shot.
One of of the great gifts in my life is that I had the opportunity as a little girl, age 6, to go to a community center and take ballet classes for free, take dance classes for free. And it made me feel the way many of our community participants today describe themselves as feeling after a dance class, whether they're 8 or 80 years of age. And that is that you feel more at home in yourself and you feel more eager to contribute to the world.
All right, 3 friends. 1, find somebody new. 2, 3. And
Sharing Dance to Older Adults is part of our community dance programs here at Canada's National Ballet School. It's designed to be artistic dance opportunities accessible to older adults who may have certain physical or cognitive challenges in their life, but the program is really centered around the art form. It's about giving them an opportunity to access the art form and experience it.
I thought dance doesn't moves. Yeah. It is moves, but it is coming from well inside you.
oh yes, look at these moves.
Canada's National Ballet School does have a much broader base of community programs than most professional ballet academies, and this has been absolutely intentional.
It isn't a question we get often. Why does a ballet school focus so much on programs for community? And I think the question comes down to this fundamental gift that we have in pursuing dance and having dance be a part of our lives. And a gift is only something you can treasure when it's a gift you give as well. So we feel privileged to engage people in dance, to rekindle people's passion for dance, to help them find it for the first time, to spark that passion for dance. And whether we're working with young ballet dancers who are refining that skill to a level that can tell amazing stories in huge theaters across the world, or we're going to meet someone in a long-term care facility and helping them tell us who they are, it's this privilege to give the gift of movement to each other. What was your favorite way to dance? This way. Yes, the rolling. Oh, how fantastic. That was beautiful.
So Karen, what type of music do you like to dance to?
Any music, any dance, any music. I really love it. But you have to find the right man to do it with. It brings out the good in them. It brings out the good in them to dance in.
Pressing the palms together, lower to your heart. No. Try that again, breathing in.
We are trying to focus on creating an artistic experience that's accessible.
Lower to your heart.
So we may understand that somebody may have challenges that maybe make a traditional dance experience a little bit less accessible. So we're trying to address that, but still provide very much that artistic experience and some of the joyful opportunity that comes with creating dance and developing it through practicing
My
it.
heart to you. Good. My heart to you.
It's the great unifier across gender, race, class, etc. It brings everyone together, and hopefully dance can do that for this segment of the population that sometimes actually doesn't necessarily have a voice.
And out. Then we'll gather up all of that energy, bring it into our hearts, and just take a moment.
Movement is our first human language. You know, when we're young, when we're little babies, yes, we can cry to get what we need, but if we want attention, we reach out, we grab on, we pull in. So it's a language that everybody has, but it takes a little bit of a spark to really feel that ownership and agency. And when we're talking about older adults living in care, the act of having agency and choice over your body is such a powerful and important opportunity to say, how do you choose to move? What do you want to tell me? So I can feel the power that giving them that opportunity for creativity and expression creates in the room.
A lot of the residents that I don't normally see sometimes dancing were more engaged. So that's good. That's a really good thing.
Well, I think that is good. I think it's good exercise. It depending on who is there. Most of these people are slightly elderly, so you got to move it around to suit. But this morning was good. You know, you get people involved.
That opportunity to move together to music, to rhythm can really help people feel connected. But also, I think, speaking specifically to sharing dance older adults, one thing we, for example, pay particular attention to is eye line, which is relevant for all dancers when you're focusing and trying to express something. But in, for example, sharing dance older adults, the eye line may connect you to somebody else, where you're cued to find somebody else in the room to look at, to connect with. And I think if we're talking specifically about our dancers living with dementia, that may not happen a lot for them in the day. There might be somebody caring for them that comes from behind to move them, or somebody they're seated, maybe in a wheelchair, and somebody from above is talking to them. So that opportunity even to make that eye contact, I think, is something meaningful that they don't necessarily have as much access to anymore.
I just love looking at somebody with big eyes and everybody's looking at them.
Oh, you're just fantastic.
So much up here.
I think life is most meaningful when we look for ways to contribute to something that is greater than any one person, that is collective and is universal. So the more that we explored this, the more it's become crystal clear that if Canada's National Ballet School doesn't do this, then who's going to do that? And it is our responsibility, with all of our privileges, to make sure that quality of life is as high as possible for everyone.
Yes, you can do this. There we go.
People living with dementia are highly stigmatized in society. They are offered limited opportunity to participate in social life, to make meaningful contributions, to pursue meaningful relationships and activities.
In our dance classes, we refer to everyone as a dancer. So it was very intentional when we said, dancer, not dementia, to kind of just turn that on its head a little bit, because yes, there are challenges and dementia can be very difficult for the person experiencing it, for their loved ones, for the people caring for them. But that doesn't mean the person doesn't have the capacity to experience joy, to express themselves, to be creative, to be playful, to be silly.
1, 2, 3, here it goes. Yeehaw! 1.
I was known as having 2 left feet.
Having dementia does not mean that you're not alive anymore. It means that you need to start doing things differently. You do things differently. You need simplified steps. You need people to still love you and respect you and just allow you to be.
People living with dementia, like all of us, have great capacity to experience and create joy.
Give me your answer to I'm half crazy.
Oh, it makes me feel wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And, I feel like, singing along to, certain songs and stuff.
What was your favorite movement?
Oh, gosh, I don't know, because I loved all of it.
Oh, good.
It was just wonderful.
And I heard your singing voice all the way from over there. Are you someone who likes to sing?
Yeah, I do.
I could tell. I could hear your beautiful singing voice all loud and strong all the way from over there. Thank you for sharing your voice with us.
And thank you for noticing
Right,
it. I didn't
fantastic.
even notice it myself until you mentioned
Well,
it.
I thought your voice was beautiful, and it added
Thank you.
so much to our dancing.
Thank you.
Stigma creates social exclusion for people living with dementia, and it deprives them of their dignity and their rights as citizens. Stigma is fueled by the assumption that with dementia, you are incapable of purposeful and meaningful interaction. You have no awareness of your surroundings, and that the neurological impairment that's at the core of dementia leads to a total erasure of the person. So stigma creates significant harm, and challenging stigma is a key public health priority across national and international settings, and increasingly the arts are advocated as a way to help to achieve that.
You can reach to somebody. Hello. And reach. Back to our.
Oh, I feel happy. I feel good. I feel the same as the other people, because I have a inferiority complex. So when I see them doing it and I can do it, well, I said, I'm the same as the other people. I lose my inferiority complex.
Last time we'll gather everything in.
So what we do here at Alexis Lodge, there's a lot of dancing because music connects with you no matter what stage of disease. It's just something that touches the soul. Dancing actually encourages engagement, and where you actually see residents verbalizing when they were not talking before, or just someone is upset or crying, you put on that music and you start dancing with them and they become so happy. It's just really soothing.
The research that our team has done and others has shown that people living with dementia have tremendous capacity to be creative. Even when speech is slow, broken, or incoherent, people living with dementia can still express themselves through song, through musical engagement, and through dance. Dance can be a really important means of connection for someone who has difficulties with verbal expression. And that's because dance so beautifully supports nonverbal communication.
Bring them in. And open.
I just like seeing the smile on their faces, especially with one of the residents, Naomi. She's not able to move the way she used to, but if she can't move her hand, I'll help her and move her hand, and help her with her feet, just move her feet. But it just makes her laugh and light up, She really enjoys it. I know a lot of people think that just because you have dementia that you're not able to do things the way you used to, or you're not smart like you used to. It's not true. They're able to do everything they used to do, but at a slower pace. They just need someone to be patient with them. That's it.
Moving a little bit.
Dance can offer so much more than therapeutic outcomes when guided by a relational approach that prioritizes relationships, life enrichment, flourishing. Dance brings us into relationship with each other. And I think this is so important because imagination, joy, vitality, humor, drama, playfulness, all of these things are connections to life itself. So I think it's really imperative that people living with dementia be given equal opportunity to engage with dance and with the arts more generally, precisely because of how they can support connection to life itself.
We've got to find that inner part, that inner core. As far as dancing goes, how did I feel? It reminded me that I was interested in dancing in my high school years. I'd forgotten about that. And then when was made aware of the behind the scenes, the deeper level of dancing, I said, wow, that was the missing part. And I used to love dancing. I used to love to go, and I'm talking about the arts, the stage, but never integrating the background, the personal journey, the expression, the choreography, because that was not considered to be cool. For a boy, for a girl, it's fine. So it's a bit of regret, because I think I could do it to make it integrate with everyday life.
Hello!
As you look at the history of dance, it's been part of communities, and that has brought to the surface specialists, but it has also kept the community healthy and whole. That when people say, well, why have you added on community dance? It's never been an add-on. It was just finding a way to recognize something that has actually been part of history and healthy communities always.
The music is clearly something that, whether you're 6 or 106, the music finds your body and carries it into movement. And then, of course, the other thing that does that is the human connection. It's the ability to create a gesture and have that received. And I think it's fundamentally more powerful than we realize.
Dance is that place where all of us can just be one and just have mutual respect for each other.
I hope that people see the extraordinary capacity that people living with dementia have to be creative, to be imaginative, to be funny and playful. These are characteristics that are not typically ascribed to people living with dementia. So I think that this can really importantly challenge the stigma associated with dementia. And I hope that people see the power of dance to support these critical connections to life itself.
Just because somebody has dementia doesn't mean their life's over. Guess what? You just start a new chapter in your own story. Just make it the best chapter ever.
I'm really love it. I can't say any other way. When I'm dancing and doing things like that, I'm very happy.
Okay, so for the sake of time, we aren't showing the credits of our film, but if you go to YouTube, we have worked with many wonderful people on the film, and we just want to acknowledge that. And if you want to see who was involved, please take a look at the credits on our YouTube video. And so now we are going to talk a little bit more about our study that we did about this. So we conducted a study to explore the impact of the film on knowledge and attitudes regarding the importance of dance for social inclusion, quality of life and life enrichment, its effectiveness in challenging stigma and in educating about or motivating dance for people living with dementia, and the artistic aspects of the film that influence the uptake of its key messages. We explored the impact of Dancer Not Dementia via the experiences and perceptions of people living in residential long-term care, family carers of people living with dementia, health and social care practitioners, healthcare managers, members of the dance community, policymakers, and members of the general public. A qualitative design was employed. Participants viewed Dancer Not Dementia and participated in either an interview or focus group discussion immediately following viewing the film, and then a follow-up interview 8 to 12 weeks later. Our analysis highlights the ways that Dancer Not Dementia challenged stigma by supporting participants' capacity to see individuals living with dementia as relational, in other words, embodied and interconnected with the world, the aesthetic aspects of the film that supported this, and how this inspired change regarding participants' practices, This is reflected in our organization of the data into the following themes: seeing interconnectedness, new understandings of dance and dementia, inspiring change, and aesthetic engagement. Our first theme, seeing interconnectedness, focuses on participants' reflections on the way in which dance fostered deep connections. For example, eye contact, which is emphasized in sharing dance as a means of social connection, was interpreted as a form of communication by participants. The following quote from a practitioner aptly captures this. The term was called eye line, eye contact with one another, and I thought that that was an excellent point that often does get perhaps missed when it comes to communicating. So I thought that was an interesting part of sharing dance itself to help foster those connections. Social interconnectedness was also seen in the way that the staff of long-term care homes in the film engaged with the dancers, noting, for example, the qualitative difference between these connections and the focus on assistance that would more typically be found in clinical interactions. Here's a quote about this from a policymaker. I was able to watch the faces of the staff, which was lovely. It was nice to see the connection, not as I'm providing you with assistance, but I'm dancing with you. That's how I perceived it. They were touching each other, the dancers. But this is a kind of touch that isn't clinical. It's just human to human. You're dancing together. So it's a kind of touch that I suspect is not common in their lives.
The next theme is new understandings of dance and dementia. Now, though dance is receiving increasing attention in dementia care for its potential to support intersubjectivity and embodied or somatic expression, for some participants, the connection between dance and dementia was entirely new. This is captured in the following quote from a participant from the general public. I know the importance of movement and exercise, but I never thought of dance in the context of people with dementia. For others, it's the value that dance can bring to the lives of people living with dementia that was new learning that was gained from seeing Dancer Not Dementia. For example, a participant from the general public reflected on the creativity and sociability that dance offers. Your film is the first film that I've seen that dance can actually make somebody's life creative and more meaningful and more sociable. Even participants from the dance community spoke of how the film challenged their assumptions that ballet is only for professional dancers and fostered for them a more inclusive understanding of this art form. It dissolved some of my expectations of what dance should be. Participants also spoke of how the film challenged their assumptions about dementia, particularly that cognitive impairment leads to an erasure of the person, and fostered new understandings of the humanity of people living with dementia. This is aptly captured in the following reflection by a participant living in residential long-term care. Sometimes we think of people with dementia that they can't do anything, but through the dance, through music, they connect. They're able to express themselves and feel that they're not inferior. They can communicate by dancing.
Participants described a number of different ways in which the film inspired new ways of relating to people living with dementia. For some participants, as captured in the following quote from a manager, the film prompted a desire to adopt a dance program as distinct from exercise programs, which are more common in dementia care settings. We do have exercise wellness programs that are facilitated by a physiotherapist, but we don't actually have dance per se. Seeing this video and seeing the joy in everyone from the residents to the staff, seeing that value and seeing how that would definitely be something that we would like to implement. Referring to the inclusivity of the Sharing Dance program, some critically reflected on their own assumptions and related practices regarding who should or should not participate in dance. The following quote from a practitioner nicely captures this. I think maybe in my mind, I still have some of those barriers when it comes to dance of saying, like who enjoyed dancing when they were young or who did this. But what about beyond that? We can include everyone. Other practitioners reflected on the embodied and expressive nature of dance and how this could inform other aspects of their practice to enhance communication and interpretation with people living with dementia. I think for me, a music therapist, it's been incorporating movement a lot more into my work. And it was started by watching this film, incorporating that idea of freeing people up to move in space and use their body that way, and myself too, even as I go through the sessions.
The theme aesthetic engagement captures a number of aspects of the film that participants described as key to their engagement with the film and its impact. For example, many participants reflected on the power of hearing directly from the dancers themselves about their dance experiences. We don't tend to think of people with dementia that they can give us any real stories, but I mean, participants were interviewed and they were able to express how they felt about what they were doing, and we tend not to want to do that because we think they're gone. Participants also spoke of the impact of seeing the dancers engage in dance. As the following quote from a family care illustrates, this highlighted for them capabilities that people living with dementia are not presumed to have. The takeaway from the film is that people with dementia are capable and that they can do different things even if they have not done them before, and that dance and music can help to remove some stigma. It can help people with dementia to socialize, create new connections, and help them to feel good about themselves. The effectiveness of the film in conveying the artistry of dance was described by participants as being supported by the artistry of the film itself, specifically the use of uplifting music, piano music, that created a sense of surprise and defamiliarization, given how unexpected that was in a film about dementia. A participant from the dance community described this well. It was uplifting music. Whoever designed the sound to have this really uplifting light piano music, that juxtaposition of a very, very heavy subject with this really light, airy piano music. The first scene, I was like, this is not going to be a really heavy, depressing topic.
To conclude, we hope that with this very brief presentation, we have conveyed the ways in which Dancer Not Dementia has been effective in reducing stigma, specifically by supporting participants' capacity to see individuals living with dementia as relational beings, as embodied and interconnected with the world, and by inspiring new ways of relating to people living with dementia. For these reasons, we feel the film is well positioned to affect more compassionate, humane, and equitable care that is urgently needed. So thank you so much for your attention, and we look forward to your comments and questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rachel and Pia. The film is just so powerful, and thank you both for sharing, showing some of the research about its impact. Pia, do you just want to stop here, share there? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to get our questions started here, and then we have some really great audience questions coming in. Again, if you're in the audience, feel free to put your question into the Q&A. So how did you both come to work at the intersection of art and science, both in terms of participatory art and art for social justice? And why do you think this is so important for supporting people who are living with dementia?
So I can kick this one off. I came to this first as an artist and a dancer. So my background is in dance, in ballet. Actually, I was a professional ballet dancer. And so I came with this embodied knowledge of what dance is and how it can be experienced and how much meaning it can bring to your life. And then, of course, when I went into academia after I retired from dance, I thought I was abandoning my art form, my craft, and I was going to discover a new way of knowing. I actually began a much more empirical way of knowing first in my studies. And then I was really fortunate to discover that I can use both ways of knowing to contribute meaningfully to really complex problems in the world that require many different perspectives. And so really dancing with and researching dance for people living with dementia has kind of, I would say for me, been one of the most profound ways that I've been able to situate myself within the intersection of the arts and sciences, and has been both a pleasure and a privilege for me. So that's sort of where I started from, and how I sort of linked them together, and then entered into this specific work.
I'm happy to answer that as well. My work at this intersection started very differently. I'm an academic, but it started with a number of projects involving the creation and evaluation of research-based theater. And, those projects powerfully highlighted for me the profound transformation that can be triggered by theater. And this included awareness that audience members gained about their own held stigma associated with dementia, new understandings that they gained about living, what it must be like to live with dementia, and how all of that supported them to envision and affect new possibilities for being and relating differently, and more inclusively, more justly, more compassionately. And so we've seen similar transformation with documentary film and also with filmed research-based theater. So I think that given my commitment to supporting people to live well with dementia and the deeply entrenched stigma that needs to be overcome to achieve more inclusive and socially just care practices, I think working at this intersection and drawing on the educational, emancipatory, interactive, power of the arts is really critical.
All right, thank you both for sharing. Okay, so we have some audience questions coming in. So from David, we have, has social prescribing been used for signups, and the value about using dance and wellness?
Maybe I can start that one. So
sure.
I've spoken to several people really on the social prescribing train and trying to kind of move that forward. My personal approach is that there's no wrong way to access dance for anyone, and including when when we're talking about somebody living with dementia. So it can have an effect for some people. The flip side of that, of course, is that I think, fundamentally dance is adaptive for all of us. And, a prescription, no matter how we're framing it, it sort of defaults to like, we need to medicalize this. We need to kind of situate it within an empirical way of knowing for us to know that we should be doing that. So as an artist, that kind of like fundamentally kind of like comes up against like a core belief of mine. That said, as an advocate, I just want whoever can benefit from it to access it. So I do think that it has potential in certain communities in terms of engaging people, but there's a much bigger issue around our attitude towards the arts and the hierarchy of ways of knowing in our society that are causing us to have to write prescriptions to do something like dance.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Rachel. It's such an important point that, like you said, we know access is such a challenging piece, but this can be a meaningful and important activity in and of itself. So, okay. We have a question from the audience. Are there any dance specialists who are looking to bring dancing to dementia gatherings outside of long-term care that you're aware of? This person's asking about maybe if there's something in the Guelph area, or if there's anything that you're aware of happening either in Ontario or across Canada.
Yeah, I'll take this.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah. So I'm excited to share that sharing dance with adults is available across the country. In the book we published about it, actually, it was about our virtual programming that was in rural Ontario and Manitoba. You can access the online version anywhere in the country or internationally as well. We also have an annual training program for dance artists to learn how to offer their practice to people living with dementia. So the more artists we can train to feel confident in offering accessible dance, that's another way to help spread it around the country. We do have several locations in Ontario. So I think my email is in the chat. Just note that there's a .ca at the end. If you are interested in starting up a Sharing Dance with Older Adults program, reach out. I might be able to connect you with either a dance artist who could offer it live or our virtual version. And also, to be clear, several spaces where it's offered are not long-term care. We have done sharing dance research when it's been offered in all sorts of spaces, community centers, libraries. It's been offered in church, recreational spaces. So there is no exclusive space where we can offer our dance program.
Perfect. Thank you. And for our audience members, we will be sharing those links at the end, and we'll put them into the chat as well. So we saw in the film and in your research talking about this was obviously a really collaborative effort. There was lots of partnerships, both with people living with dementia, community organizations like the National Ballet School, dance artists, filmmakers, were clearly so central to the impact of this film. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of these partnerships for culture change work, particularly in the dementia space?
Sure. I can start off there. I think that these particular partnerships were really essential to this project. To start, prioritizing the voices of people living with dementia was really important to us, given our commitment to challenging stigma. Partnering with NBS was obviously essential, given that the film features the sharing dance program that they co-created. Their dance artists are integral to the program, but also more broadly because they've made community dance a core feature of their philosophy. And finally partnering with a professional filmmaker was in keeping with our recognition of the importance of aesthetic engagement with the film and the need for high quality artistry to support that.
I'll just add to that one thing we had to do with all of our partners to make sure that this really was community-based research done with integrity was to start to get to know them, and before we did anything, and how we did that was through dance. So whether it was our wonderful filmmaker or the dancers or the staff in the long-term care facilities, before any film happened, it was really like, let's dance together. And generally, I would also say in our work, dance itself has been its own knowledge dissemination tool. So the best way to understand why people living with dementia should dance, why anyone should dance, is to kind of experience it and have that experiential way of knowing as well, as much as we can, and love to speak to the research about it.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just so interesting to hear how it was just woven through every kind of layer and part of this process. All right, so we have a question about some of the kind of challenging, how challenging it is to address stigma in society. So can you talk a little bit about what are other potential ways to help reduce dementia stigma, on a more broader level, maybe at the community or even at a national level?
So I can start off there. Given that the arts are so central to my program of research, I really do think that theater and film are really powerful mediums to do this. But there are other, and I guess because, there's a lot of reasons why, but because it helps to change the conversation. It opens up a conversation about dementia in a different way. And so I think that, that's why I think social justice art is such a powerful way to change the way people think about dementia, and then ultimately to change the way we're relating to people living with dementia. We've hosted public screenings of the film, and then moderating a Q&A following that is a really important way to engage audiences about this. So public-facing events like that, I think, are really a powerful way to address stigma.
For sure. I'll just add something that's been my experience working on this project is the element of joy helps everybody's shoulders go down. So even if it's something scary and there's a lot of stigma, even the comment from one of our participants about the light piano music, that juxtaposition, suddenly it's I'm coming with this idea that this is going to be terrible, which is the stigma, right? And then you're like, oh, but there's also. And so, you know, as we're looking at ways to challenge stigma and the messages we have to share, and some of it is difficult and challenging, remembering, you know, what are the doors in, and sometimes it's about, you know, creating, offering something that's going to be joyful, fun, playful, beautiful, so that people can remind themselves that that's also part of being alive, and living with dementia.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you know, on that same note, how do you hope the film will continue to be used?
I mean, we are hoping everyone sees this film. That's why we've made it freely accessible on YouTube. And, you know, we will continue to promote the film to ensure that it reaches as many people as possible. And I think doing targeted screenings is important too. You know, decision makers, policymakers are not an easy audience to reach. And so, you know, but obviously is an important audience to reach given the kind of change that we're advocating. So I think doing targeted screenings, I think, is going to be really important. And already the film is being used in education, like in universities, high schools. It's being used as a way to raise awareness about dementia and the importance of challenging, you know, these stereotypes and prejudices. So I think those are a lot of ways that we're hoping. Well, we're seeing that it's being used, and we'll plan to continue to use it that way.
Mm-hmm. And we want people to see it too, so we will be sharing the link at the end as well, and it is free to watch on YouTube. So for everyone in the audience, please share with your family, your friends, your networks. We'll make sure we include that link. Can you share a little bit about how people living with dementia in the community could be invited to participate, maybe in this dance program or another one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of the work we do at Canada's National Ballet School is to support community spaces for the program to be offered. We usually, a lot of people reach out to us now. You can find information about how to connect with the virtual program on our website. So that is one channel, and certainly, you know, research Pia and I are involved in now looking to bring more dance artists in, and dance artists from, you know, diverse communities who are going to be able to offer different dance forms that are going to be, you know, meaningful and relevant for the, you know, the diversity of cultures across Canada, to develop their skills and their confidence in, you know, offering their craft to people living with dementia. So the more people who feel confident in creating dance opportunities for people living with dementia, and the more community spaces, of course, that know about it and are able to access it. Just to clarify, there's no charge for the virtual program. So it's, I mean, you do need to have somebody on site, obviously facilitating, organizing, but in terms of accessing the dance content, we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. So a lot of it is, you know, the knowledge dissemination, so people know about this and get excited about it so that they take it up.
Perfect, thank you. There are lots of questions in the chat about where people can get access to these types of programs, how to stay involved. So again, we'll be sharing some more information at the end of the question period, and that includes Rachel's email. So we'll make sure to include that for everyone. Probably have time for maybe one or two last questions here. So we have a question asking, can you just describe or talk about some of the benefits of dance that you've noticed from the activity, whether that's health, behavior, any other kind of engagement with other kind of healthy activities as a result of the dance program?
Do you want me to
You want to start, Pia?
Rachel? Yeah, sure. I mean, there are a lot of health outcomes, obviously, to engaging in dance. And these have been identified in research, but also just anecdotally, you know, as we watch people engage with the program. But there are a lot of other benefits that we don't see as much featured in research on dance, like bringing people into relationship with each other, empowerment, creative self-expression, creating something of value to oneself and to others. Like these are all really, really important benefits to dance for life enrichment. So when I guess it comes back to what Rachel was saying before about trying to broaden the focus here so that we're not just focusing on targeted health outcomes, but really about supporting health for life enrichment. So I would say one of the most important benefits is that it supports human flourishing.
Yeah, that's a great place to jump off on, because that sense of accomplishment, that meaning, the positive emotions, the positive relationships that are part of dancing are very evident in people living with dementia, and really looking at anyone who dances. So that's a really a critical piece. We have, with Sharing Dance Older Adults, looked at those health outcomes as well, and not surprisingly, it's, of course, it's exercise, but it's so much more in research beyond dementia, but looking at older adults broadly, we see less attrition than some other programs that older people can access. That it's that dose of exercise, but it's people keep showing up, like it's they're actually enjoying it, they want to be there. So that'll depend on the person, but for some, I think many dance can feel more accessible and something that they can stick to more consistently than some exercise in the research, and also anecdotally that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. And it just makes me think of something you mentioned a few questions ago around that joy piece. And we could see that in the film from the dancers, and so comes through as well in your presentation of the impact. Really just the film is so powerful. And I just want to thank you both again for sharing with us your research and bringing this film and all of its impact, and helping us challenge some of the stigma associated with dementia. So with that, I want to thank all of our audience members for joining us today. I'm just going to briefly share my screen here just to share some of the resources that I mentioned. So you can learn more about the film and access the film as well at dancernotdementia.ca. There's also some other resources related to dementia and stigma: Cracked New Light on Dementia and Dementia in New Light. And Pia and Rachel were also very gracious in sharing their emails with us as well. So please reach out to them if you have any questions about anything we talked about today. And lastly, here at the NAA, our email is there, as well as our website. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Pia. Thank you, Rachel. I hope everyone feels a little lighter and more joyful. I know I do. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.